Before we kick off this episode of Headstrong, I want to talk to you about my series sponsor, Green Chef. Now, if you're anything like me, you are always on the go and rarely have time to even think about eating healthy, let alone going to the shop, picking out the right ingredients, and then getting home and devoting loads of time to cooking these meals. Luckily, Green Chef are one step ahead. They deliver your ingredients and step-by-step recipe cards directly to your door, making it the easiest and most convenient way to keep healthy eating habits on track. Green Chef offers a wide variety of delicious recipes each week, with options including keto, vegan, flexitarian, lower carb, and vegetarian diets. Even better, all of these recipes contain one or more of your 5 a day. What an absolute bonus. Green Chef recipes are developed and approved by qualified nutritionists, so you can relax knowing that your meals align with your dietary needs and lifestyle. So, get 40% off your first box and 20% off your next 3 boxes with the code HEADSTRONG. That's Headstrong for 40% off your first box and 20% off your next 3 boxes with Green Chef. Hello and welcome back to Headstrong. This is series 7 of the podcast. I can't believe that we're actually here doing another series. It's incredibly exciting. If you're a new listener, this is a podcast with me, Louis Strong, where I talk with a range of fantastic individuals in the public eye about their lives and their careers. But notably, I want to talk to them about their vulnerabilities to understand what the word headstrong means to them. To me, the word headstrong means to believe in yourself, to talk about your vulnerabilities, and reinforce your self-worth. Now, I have got an incredible season lined up for you guys. I've got some incredible guests, and I hope that you'll subscribe and enjoy the next 12 weeks with me as we unravel some impressive stories and are inspired by these amazing individuals. My first episode of this new series is with a wonderful man called Josh Pieters. Before rising to superstardom fame on YouTube, Josh was living in South Africa and then moved here to the UK as a professional cricketer. One thing led to another and he found himself making YouTube videos. 10 years later, he's now pranking some of the biggest stars around the world, including Carole, Baskin, and Katie Hopkins. They're absolutely hilarious and an absolute must-watch. I really hope you enjoy this episode of Headstrong. Josh, thank you very much for joining me on Headstrong. How are we today?
Pleasure. I'm very good. It's a clear, blue, crisp morning, and you've got me up early, but I like it.
Early, we got to get the early bird catches the worm, as they say.
Exactly.
So I've already given you a nice intro before we got on here, but you're one of YouTube's funniest guys. You're partnered with Archie Manners now, so who's a friend of the pod.
Yeah, I've seen Archie's been on it before. I just want to check, in that intro, you made me out to be really, really big time.
Yeah. You are definitely big, and Archie's not even mentioned.
Good, and you got in all the numbers, all the amount of views, all the subscribers.
Numbers, figures, the amount of money I'm paying you for this episode, everything.
Awesome.
Now, did Archie have to do much persuading to get you on board?
No, he didn't. I just checked. I said, "Look, Archie, is this who is this guy?" And he said, "I have no idea, but he pays a lot for people to come on his podcast." So I thought, well, you know what? I can't say no.
So before all of this success on YouTube and your pranking and everything, I really want to talk about South Africa. Because obviously, for the uneducated who might be listening, it's quite obvious you are from South Africa, as we can hear.
Yes.
Now, You talked about this blue crisp morning here, but I imagine you had far nicer mornings back in South Africa, waking up near yellow sandy beaches, a warm sea. Some might consider paradise if you are British. What was that like as a child?
Well, it was obviously amazing, but the funny thing about it is because I grew up there, it took moving to England, I think, to properly appreciate how lucky I was to grow up where I did grow up. So it was only when I started living here that I was like, oh yeah, I was pretty lucky.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What was that upbringing like in South Africa? Because obviously it's got such a deep, rich history, which I don't want to necessarily touch on, but I do want to touch on the kind of the class side of it.
Yeah.
Because there's a big divide in terms of wealth. So is that very obvious in terms of the educational side, the private sector and the state sector of education?
Yeah, so I mean, South Africa is very starkly contrast in how most of the people in the country live, and then how very few lucky people get to live. I was very fortunate in how I was brought up, but it was again that thing of not actually fully understanding that until moving to another country. You become so desensitized to the sort of gap between rich and poor in South Africa when you're just there living there, and you're quite ignorant to it. But South Africa is an incredible place. It's I'd highly recommend visiting, but it's got a lot of problems still from things that happened not so long ago. So you do have an incredible amount of really, really poor people, a lot of crime, and a lot of problems. But it is also one of probably the most naturally beautiful places I've ever been, and I was lucky enough to grow up there.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to go twice, but it's as you say, it's you really fully appreciate it when I've seen it in such little amounts. But of course, there's so much that I didn't see. And you go to the big cities and you go to the tourist attractions, shall we say, and you get drawn into the bits that South Africa wants you to see, shall we say? But there's so much untouched that you need to see for the rich culture and diversity that there is there.
Yeah, there's it's a very complex country, I suppose, but that's not to say I don't think that you should feel bad for going there and only experiencing the good bits, because I think the thing that helps South Africa the most is having foreign people come to the country and spend money there to help grow the economy. So definitely still go visit and go to the tourist attractions, because they're great.
Of course. Your forever friend is, of course, Casper Lee. Something that I will talk to you first. Casper's going to come on as well, actually. I'm doing an episode with Ben.
Wow. What are you... I mean, I know what you're paying me. What are you paying him?
That's charity work for him. So that's one question I was going to ask you. What do I need to ask Casper to really stitch him up?
Wow, I could give you a lot, but
okay, within reason. I don't want him to hang up on the call.
What could you ask Casper to stitch him up? Just is it with Ben that he's doing it?
And with Ben, yeah.
Why don't you just ask them if you think that Casper does an appropriate amount of days in the office for influencer, and just watch the two of them try and answer that.
And then just let them talk for 10 minutes.
Yeah, they'll give you some good stuff there, I reckon.
Brilliant.
They'll definitely disagree.
So, of course, you grew up with Casper when you were young, and from a fairly young age as well. When you two were teenagers, were you thick as thieves?
Yeah, so Casper came to the town I grew up in, and we ended up growing up in when he was like 13. And for the first year he was at our school, we hated each other. We were mortal enemies. And then I think through Counter-Strike, the computer game, we both liked it and we bonded over that. And then over a couple of years became like best friends by the time we were sort of 15. And now we are 28 and 27 and still live together. So yeah, we became best friends. And when we were teenagers becoming best friends, that's when Casper started talking about like making videos and putting them on YouTube, which we were all like, weird. Because no one that wasn't a thing, especially not at a school in South Africa, for someone to film themselves and put videos on the internet. For context, this was 2010. But yeah, that just shows how sort of ahead of his time he was. Back then he was, putting videos on the internet, which is just crazy to think where it's led to now.
So, of course, you guys were caught, or not maybe you necessarily, but Casper carrying these cameras around, capturing content. Is there anything at school that you can remember that wasn't caught on camera and you go, that was pretty crazy? That could have been a good video.
I can't remember particularly anything. I do just remember a lot of people being very confused as to like I still have people confused as to how YouTube is a job. So even back then, you can imagine. I mean, I remember this teacher in particular at our school just being like, what are you doing? This is so embarrassing. This is never going to go anywhere. As that, you know, there's always those stories of teachers doing those kind of things, but yeah, it certainly went somewhere.
I bet that teacher's absolutely shocked now at the stark reality of TikTok.
Yeah.
That can't be going well before his
I think she's definitely disengaged.
Yeah. Now, something I really need to talk to you about is cricket. Cricket is the sport that I love the most.
Oh, really?
I did a cricket podcast last year supporting the Ruth Strauss Foundation.
Oh, wow.
We had some great guys on, Joss Butler, Don Bess, Straussy, Jason Holder. Cool. We had some great guys on. But I'm beyond jealous that you had professional contracts, not only in the UK, but in South Africa as well.
Yes. Yeah, for people who don't know, before I did YouTube, I wanted to play professional cricket for a living. So I used to play half the year in the UK for the British summer and then the other half of the year in South Africa. And it was actually when I was playing cricket in London, I got glandular fever, and Casper was in London as well making YouTube videos. So I started hanging around with YouTubers more and ended up being one myself. So it was almost from cricket that led me to YouTube.
So I just want to stay on cricket for a second. Was cricket always your main career goal at the time before you got this illness? Was that always your drive and competitive spirit in you that you wanted to succeed as a job?
I think like for the first 2 years when I finished school, so like 2013 and 14, and then the year where I actually got glandular fever was 2015. And at that point, I'd sort of started to think to myself, it might be time to study. I was going to go and study in Cape Town, but I wanted to play one more year. And just because it was such a great opportunity, the opportunity to come over to another country, play for 6 months, like get paid to play, just have a great time doing what you love. I wanted to do it for one more year, essentially. And good thing I did, because then I ended up getting sick, which seemed like the worst thing at the time. And then that led me to what I do now. So it was a really lucky, weird, strange story.
What is that experience like of cricket in South Africa in terms of at that grassroots level? What does cricket stand for to children in South Africa in underprivileged places? Because I've been on tour there, and I remember going to playing some underprivileged places, not even at school. And that's their drive is unbelievable. Naturally, we didn't win a game.
Yeah, it's great. I think sport in general is a sort of great opportunity for people who are in tough situations to find some enjoyment in something and find something to motivate them, and often also a path out of a bad situation. By excelling at that sport, it can lead to, scholarships and bursaries at good schools and good universities. And if they're really good, obviously a career in the sport. I've always, just because I love sport, really believed in sport being a driver for change in poorer countries. And I think it definitely is in South Africa. And then there's some incredible don't of people from really tough backgrounds who've made it for themselves by sticking to a sport. I don't know if you saw the South African rugby player Mpimpi, who was in the team that won the World Cup. I mean, he's from one of the sort of harshest backgrounds you can find in South Africa, and he made his way to winning the World Cup and scoring a try in the World Cup final against England. I'm sorry, but it can do some incredible things for people's sport.
So I completely agree. Now let's talk about your first. Well, maybe not your first, but maybe a significant and notable mental challenge that you experienced was your first long-term trip to the UK, and you went from the glory of South Africa to Stoke.
You've done some research.
And now that's a serious, drastic change. Now, how did this affect you mentally from not only the change of location, the weather, but the lack of family around and starting almost afresh again? What did that have an impact on you mentally?
Yeah, it was. So I went from Knysna in South Africa, which is like probably one of the most beautiful places in the world, to Stoke-on-Trent, which when I knew I was going to England, I just thought of London because that was the only place I'd been when I was a kid. And when I arrived there, I thought I'd made a huge mistake. I was phoning my parents, asking for them to let me come home. I was crying. I thought I'd made the biggest mistake ever. I didn't know where I was, didn't know anyone. The house I showed up in to stay at. So how these professional contracts, because you're playing for a club essentially, but they're paying your airfare and your accommodation and your salary and whatever. But sometimes you just stay with someone from the club. So I was staying with the treasurer from the club, and I'll never forget showing up to his house. I mean, he was a very nice guy, but he was very, very old. The house was just like gross in terms of it wasn't clean. There was just stuff everywhere, like marks on the walls, marks in the bathroom. Like it smelled a little funny. He was sort of living on his own, and I just thought I'd made the biggest mistake ever. And I was on the phone to my parents asking to come home. I then went to London for the weekend and saw Casper, and basically everyone sort of talked me down, and we spoke to the club, and they arranged for me to stay with another family from the club whose house was great. It was just, it was clean. And yeah, slowly but surely I started enjoying being there, and by the end of it, it was great and definitely one of the best things I've ever done, but at first the most challenging, because I was obviously a spoiled kid from South Africa.
Now, something that is perhaps adaptable mentality from cricket to business, but to any line of work. How do you stay motivated to succeed when you feel like things aren't going your way? What's your thought process to that?
I think you've just got to realize that everything comes down to a bit of half chance in life. So even if you work particularly hard at something, there's a good chance it won't work out. But on the other hand, sometimes you do get a bit of luck in your favor, and you've just got to keep going. Life's very strange and things happen in weird ways, but you just got to keep going because there's nothing else. What else is there?
Absolutely. So you got glandular fever, which of course is a debilitating illness, and this put you on the sidelines of the cricket pitch. First and foremost, what's it like seeing your teammates out there playing the sport that you love? The reason that you're in the country is to do that job, and you're not able to do it. What's that feeling like?
Yeah, well, the guy who came in to replace me, who was another overseas professional, scored 100 in his first game. So
no.
Yeah, so they weren't missing me very much. But
what about for you?
What's that?
What about for you, though? How did it feel for you?
Yeah, I felt just like left out and not needed anymore. But then as I started feeling better, so how glandular fever works is, I was sick, very sick for a couple of weeks, but then it's the next few months where you're meant to rest and not do sport. I still felt mostly fine. I just couldn't do any exercise properly. But I then almost started enjoying not having to play cricket every Saturday, because I'd done it for so long, and it was like, oh, cool, I can do something on a Friday night, or I can do something over the weekend. So in the beginning, I almost then started enjoying it a bit, and that's when I found, I guess, a new passion in making videos and finding something new to do. So yeah, it's strange how life can work sometimes.
As you've mentioned before, you've got an amazing tight-knit group of friends who are in the YouTube world, which of course naturally helped you catapult your platform into the spotlight, which is amazing. But how important is it to have a tight-knit group of friends who are supportive of your endeavors and particularly help you forge a pathway for anything that you put your mind to as well?
Yeah, super important. I was so lucky that when I started, we were surrounded by this group of people who were all making YouTube videos, and we could all share in each other's audiences. So the more we made videos together, the better it worked out for all of us. And I don't think it would have been nearly impossible to get to where I have got to without that start. So that's that luck thing again, where I was so lucky to have that to start. And it was absolutely crucial to it. And as well as that, now those guys have all become sort of friends for life of mine. So it's been great. And it was such a fun experience. It was the seven of us all, making, I think there were seven of us all making videos and just having the time of our lives and having a great time. And that's now moved on to something different, but in what I make with Archie, but also in its own way, really challenging and rewarding and extremely, extremely fun.
I mean, you've got your own narrative of your video content now, and it's probably slightly different. And as you've grown up, as has your content. So now you're kind of firmly planted in the world of high profile celeb pranking, which is
That's
what
very kind to say.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, it was definitely a strange transition from the Chubby Bunny Challenge to giving Katie Hopkins an award. That's for sure.
So let's talk about generating ideas then about video content.
Yeah.
You are now basically partnered with Archie.
Yes.
How do you brainstorm together, or do you not brainstorm together? And sometimes you wake up at 1 a.m. and go, dude, that might be a good idea. I'm going to write it down.
So we have this cage in my house, and we put Archie in it when he comes round, and we just throw stones at him until he comes up with an idea. And then we roll with that. It's honestly, there's no like formulaic process to it. It literally is just a lot of reading newspapers, talking to each other, and it'll come, as you say, sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes in the middle of the day. There's no real formula to it. We're always talking about ideas, and we have a lot of like things written down that we think might be fun to do, but there's certainly no formula to the ideas, I don't think.
How many ideas, when you generate them, never actually bear the fruit of success and never get off the ground?
So like things we actually decide to try and make but then don't work?
Yeah.
We've been quite lucky in that once we've gone to filming, it's only happened a handful of times that it's fallen down because the person we're trying to do something to has figured us out, or there's the loophole we thought would work just didn't work. It's not been too frequent, I think, because basically we'll think, okay, that's a good idea, but then we'll start going into like researching how we're actually going to do it, and at that point often it falls short. So it's not like we've had to film and then abort because something's gone wrong in the filming, except for the once when someone caught on to what we were doing.
Is there anyone you're allowed to say that caught on?
I won't say, just because it's something we still might want to do.
Oh, good.
And if I say, then it might ruin it. But
don't want to ruin it.
Yeah, just in case it works one day.
So let's talk about the ambiguity of content creation then, because every now and then, maybe not a YouTuber, but let's say a content creator might have a failure in a post or a video or something, but that's because the line becomes blurred of what can be appropriate and what isn't appropriate. And the one that springs to mind is, of course, the forest video with Logan Paul.
Yeah.
But I think he was creating so much content, and from what I've listened to and watched as well, that the line became blurred for him. So is there that pressure of having that in the back of your mind if there might be an inappropriate stepping over of the line, or are you fairly well versed in that?
No, that's always a worry, I think. And, it's only down to our judgment. We show it to as many friends as we can and try and get constructive feedback as much as we possibly can. So that's always something to be cautious of. I suppose in Logan Paul's case, that was probably a time in his life where, he was creating videos every single day. He was extremely famous and probably surrounded by a bunch of people who were maybe too scared to even say, I don't know if that's a great idea. So, he got himself to a point where, whether it was that video or another one, I think that was sort of bound to happen. But seems like he's definitely learned from that and probably changed quite a lot as a person. And yeah, it's nice to see that he's still really doing incredibly well.
He actually seems like a really humble man now.
It's because you compare him to his brother. So
yeah, I know.
It's impossible for anyone not to seem humble, but no, he does seem to be a nice guy.
God, I don't know what's happened in that regard. They've got like done a switcheroo.
Yeah, I know, but they're doing well.
How did you meet Archie then? So I mentioned that Ben and Casper are coming on here, and they've got some sort of romantic Tinder story.
Yeah.
What's your story with Archie?
So Archie, I'd seen some stuff he'd done online, which was the series that you should check out if you haven't seen it, called Archie Asks, where he goes around in public just asking people ridiculous things, and basically, he went to Wimbledon and would ask passers-by, what do you think of the match between Andy Murray and Jacob Rees-Mogg later? And the ladies would say, well, I think Andy's going to take him in the third set. So it was really, really great, and I loved them, and I just thought they were so good, and that he was really good. and that's how we became friends. And then he helped out with a couple of videos just as a friend. And I thought that we worked really well together. And then about 4 years ago, I was making this music video, this parody music video about Conor Maynard's sister. It was like a whole joke. And I needed someone to help me direct the music video. And I was like, oh, well, Archie will be good at this. And I called him on the day of the music video. I think the guy who was meant to do it dropped out, so I can't remember. But he went, yeah, I'll be there. Absolutely. And he directed this music video with me, and it was just hilarious to work with him. And he was really good, and the product was really good. And then he worked for me a few more times, just on a sort of pro bono basis. And he was great. So then I said, look, Archie, I really like working with you. Would you want to come and maybe do 2 days a week where we work together and make videos for my YouTube channel? And he's like, yep, that's great. Love it. And he then proceeded to work for 7 days a week when he was only being paid for 2 days a week, and just threw himself into it completely. And that led us to the videos where we hatched a quail from a supermarket egg. We listed my flat as a restaurant on Deliveroo, and culminating in the Katie Hopkins video, which is when things really took off to another level of, okay, this is getting serious now. We might, there's something to do here between the two of us. We should really think about what we do going forward with this. And he said, look, I'm loving this, but I can't just keep being paid to work 2 days a week and devote my life to this, but I want to. Is there anything we can do? And we came up with an agreement that we were both happy with, which formed this partnership, which we now have. And from then, it's been only great things. We, straight after the partnership, we had that Carole Baskin video, which was like a great start to the partnership. And then a few other videos, which we've been lucky enough to make that have done really well. And now we're partners, and hopefully it's just the sort of start of a long partnership.
I'm going to talk about probably 3 videos with you in detail, hopefully.
Okay.
Just before we dive into the specifics of that, I've got two questions. The first one being, why do you think YouTube is such a successful platform compared to, when you compare it to other content creation? Why is it so significant?
I think it's so successful because it's so diverse in what you can watch. If you need to fix your washing machine, you can look up a video which will help you do that. If you want to watch some great comedy, you can find a video that will help you do that. And if you want to fix your golf swing, you can find a video to help you do that. So it is literally the whatever you want of entertainment you will find. And I think that just makes it irresistible to people because they can use it to find any form of entertainment.
I suppose as well, the next question is, because it's not a traditional 9-to-5 job, it's very much self-employed and you're creative. Yeah. How do you find time to switch off then? When do you feel like it's appropriate to give yourself a break and a rest? Because otherwise you can get burnout.
Yeah, so I think that's, it's hard to sit there and say like, the hard parts of being a YouTuber, because we're very lucky to have this as a job. But that is definitely one of the things to contend with, is because there's no boss or person telling you this is the time you take off and go on holiday. It does always feel like you should be working. So you have to just try and think it's fine. I'm taking a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is, where I'm not going to do anything, and that doesn't matter. I found it harder to do when I was uploading videos every week, because as soon I felt like I had to upload every week because I wasn't doing my job if I didn't. Now that we upload so much less frequently, I don't mind, taking a few weeks off sometimes, because I don't feel that pressure of having to upload. So that's been better for me. And as I've grown up as well, I guess I've realized how important it is to have that time for yourself. Archie will tell you I'm very good at taking that time off for myself.
Of course he would. Are you Are you in kind of in tune with your mental health?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. What do you mean?
As in, do you experience wobbles and you go, actually, okay, I might actually take a step back? Or are you actually quite level-headed in terms of your mental health?
I think I'm quite lucky in that, yeah, I've not struggled with it too much. But I was certainly, toward the end of last year, struggling a bit. And when it came to December time, and I go back every December to see my family in South Africa, which is the only time I see them for the year. And then the UK announced that there's a travel ban on South Africa. That was a month or a few weeks where I was really just like not motivated to do anything, because essentially I felt like this break I give myself at the end of every year to go back to South Africa had just been taken away from me. But, you know, I sort of got through it and got over it. And then miraculously, the UK lifted the travel ban 2 weeks later. So I could go back to South Africa in any case. So it all actually worked out. But yeah, in general, I think I'm quite lucky with my mental health and in not getting too stressed out.
So let's dive straight into a video that I really enjoy. The first one is, I don't know if it's actually on your platform necessarily, but it's very much you doing the interviewing with Tom Holland.
Oh, no, it is on my platform.
It is on your platform.
It's been stolen from me many, many times.
Yeah, that's the problem. But it is so funny. And obviously with the recent Spider-Man film, it's re-entered the public domain.
Yeah.
It has done so on multiple occasions.
I've seen it everywhere,
right.
Especially on TikTok.
Yeah.
But it has sort of been taken and redistributed, but it's fine.
Spoiler alert for anyone listening. You've got 10 seconds. Great. Don't fancy doing Garfield or Maguire anytime soon?
I would if I could.
So a question about that kind of video is then, do you enjoy getting a thrill out of that bit? Because you're literally face to face with them in that environment, ready to go. Tom's obviously such a lovely guy. He is fairly down to earth, especially when you were interviewing him before he got even mega big. Yeah. But that must have been hilarious for you and must have been so difficult to maintain that straight face. Yeah,
I do enjoy those scenarios. I mean, it's at the time you get that sort of sick, like really, at the time you get that really sick feeling in your stomach. But it's one of those things that if you can push through it and pull it off, you get a sort of major kick of adrenaline, and it's really fun. So I do enjoy it. But yeah, that was very funny. The hardest thing was not laughing, because I obviously had Casper and Connor feeding me these ridiculous lines. So that was the hardest bit, was not actually laughing, but it was really fun, and he was great. And yeah, the whole video was really fun to do.
Did he find out after you were there, or did he just never find out and that was that?
He did. There's the full video. You see, Louis, you've been watching the rip-offs.
Oh, the rip-offs.
You've got to get to the full video. So we reveal it to him at the end, and he did really well.
Oh, brilliant. Now let's talk about the admin of that video, because you got in the room as to interview him basically when he's doing his publicity for his big films. How do you facilitate that sort of introduction?
YouTubers nowadays get a lot of opportunities to interview celebrities when they're promoting a new film, just as the press would do. So they often give you 10 minutes to interview the celebrity, and you can make it into a video for your YouTube channel. I thought the sort of prospect of just interviewing someone was probably a bit boring. So I tried to think of how we might make it a bit more fun. And that was the concept I came up with. Somehow the studio approved that as an idea. So I was put into the room. Tom came in thinking I was a YouTuber who was interviewing him, but obviously had no idea that I was getting fed lines of what to say to him.
So next video that I need to talk about, and this one I have watched in length before you slate me, Katie Hopkins. Yeah. Because I chatted at length about this video with Archie, and it is just, I mean, it's absolute gold. But the logistics in it are mad. Yeah. How long did it take up from setup to completed product?
3 months, I think. So it was from like November in 2019 to the filming on, I think it was like the 20-something of January 2020, and then we uploaded it around that time. So about 3 months. Yeah, it was that was a lot of work.
What was the biggest challenge in that video for you? I'm sure there were a few.
It was the day before rehearsing it all and just the sort of realization that all this money's now been spent and she might turn up and immediately realize something's wrong and the whole thing is screwed. Like the whole video hinged on one person. And if she sniffed something out, that was it. And all that money was wasted and the whole thing would just go up in smoke. So it was just so nerve-wracking the days leading up to it.
I don't want to go specific, but can you give me a how many zeros on the end in terms of figure are we talking?
Yes, it was how many zeros on the end would be four zeros in that realm of money spent. So it was expensive.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. But worth it. Were you prepared for how well that was going to go? Did you have an inkling?
No, I mean, I didn't. So at that time, that was still like, we'd never done anything quite like that. We'd obviously, tricked Deliveroo and done a few things like that, but we'd never done something quite that outrageous. So we didn't know. We just sort of took a bit of a leap of faith and prepared for it as much as we could, and it all worked out. So the whole evening was just a complete adrenaline rush and absolute crazy blur, but it all worked out, luckily.
I love that. I mean, it's absolutely amazing if anyone hasn't seen it. And of course, lastly, and this will make you laugh, I think, Carole Baskin, who is in fact another friend of the podcast.
Oh, what? She's done the podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, did you ask her about the video?
She did say, God, they did so well. It was brilliant, really well done. And actually, it really helped me. And
yeah, she took the whole thing really well. That was what was nice about that. Was straight away she was like, oh, that was so funny. And she seemed to really enjoy it. And she got to do her call to the wild, which was her animal charity shout out in the video, which got a lot of views. So I think
ultimately you navigated that really well, because you could have easily slated her in one way, but actually you took the moral high ground and wanted to ensure that she could do. Because ultimately I think what she stands for and is passionate for is really good, but certain things have maybe become a little less transparent.
And it's all just a bit hypocritical because of the business she was in compared to what she's sort of promoting as a charity. But
indeed.
Carole,
indeed.
Baskin.
Well, let's put it this way. Joe Exotic would be a cracker to get on.
Yeah, that would be exceptional.
Oh, good. So what is next in terms of, obviously I'm not going to ask the specifics of your channel and what videos are upcoming, but what's the aim for 2022 and beyond of the channel? Is it to just expand? Are you going into other realms?
So yeah, there's a few things that Archie and I are working on that are away from YouTube, which are all just prospects at this point. And if they came to fruition, that would be really exciting. But as is with this industry, you just never know. So fingers crossed for those, and hopefully you'll hear about them at some point in the not too distant future. YouTube, we just want to continue doing what we're doing and make sure that every time we put something out, it's something that people will be like, oh, cool, I want to watch that, not just, oh, there's another video. And then we're also looking at creating content for brands that we're not necessarily in, which is something we've started doing more of, which is quite fun, where we're producing. So a brand will come to us and we'll conceptualize an idea for an advert for them and, shoot it, help direct it, edit it, everything, and deliver them back a product that they can post on their socials or indeed on television if they wanted to. So almost a production house for adverts for brands. And yeah, that's the plan for this year. By the end of it, I'll probably be playing cricket again or something, because things never go as you plan them to. But
Josh Pieters getting drafted into the 100.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That'd be quality. So this is a question I ask every guest. What does the word headstrong mean to you?
The word headstrong to me means to, I think, inspire the people around you in tough situations. I think that's one of the bravest things you can do, is that when your team or family or whatever the scenario you find yourself in are in a really tough spot, if you can be the person to show a bit of strength and resolve you can inspire a whole group of other people, and people feed off that energy from you. So for me, that's what being headstrong is about.
Amazing. Thank you, Josh. I've really enjoyed this chat. It's been good to speak to you face to face and discuss some of your amazing work. So keep it up, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
And that's it for this first episode of Headstrong. A massive, massive thank you to Josh for joining me on this first episode. I really appreciated his openness, his honesty, and his humour. What an absolutely lovely young man. If you have enjoyed this episode, please do like, subscribe, go check us out on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Every little helps in your support. If you also like it, please share it with your family and friends. All that's left for me to say is I will see you next week for another episode of Headstrong.